Welcome to the X-Verse podcast, a show about the X-Men, the comics, the movies, the TV shows, but mostly the comics. This is episode 5. We are coming out a little bit later than planned. I mean, generally I try to get these things out at the beginning of the month, but I was called away on work business. That kind of got in the way, and they ended up getting sent to Dallas and coming back with this cold disease. I don't know what this is, but that's why I sound a little screwed up. Don't fear, I am self-medicating with a little bit of the Glenlivet. On today's show, we are going to have 19 comics to talk about, all X-related. So rather than waste any more time, let's just move right into it with X-Men Gold, number 9 and 10. So number 9, we finally, Kitty is invited to Congress to speak, I guess in front of the committee that's looking to pass the mutant deportation legislation. So we get, I would say this, we get a fairly, it's a pretty typical scene where Kitty gets not one but two moments here to soapbox on why it's wrong to deport mutants because they're mutants and because some of them are dangerous to other American citizens. And I mean, you get all the kind of the typical sort of rote, almost cliche now, I would say, arguments why this is bad. I mean, she even brings up the Japanese internment camps during World War II. It's fine. I think it's a little lazy, and I still don't understand how a congressional body could pass legislation that would allow it to deport American citizens. I just don't get that. I mean, there's sort of a brief exchange between Kitty and one of the congressmen, where he essentially states that mutants are not human, but they don't get into the fact they don't get into the idea of whether or not, like, well, if they're not human, you know, would the Constitution, do they have even any civil rights under American law? That's all just bypassed in favor of Kitty standing up to big, bad, racist government. It's, you know, it is what it is. I just wish I wish Guggenheim here was like a little bit more honest or would tackle the issue from a slightly more intelligent point of view, as this is really just big bad government and then totally completely right freedom loving Kitty Pryde standing up to oppressive authoritarian congressmen. I don't know how you would pass this kind of legislation. It's so clearly against the law. But anyway, that section or that portion of this comic is thankfully brief. I think it's really only like 2 pages of some self-congratulatory speechifying on Kitty's part. The rest of it is pretty decent. So for some reason, again, we have another villain. This time, Whiplash. I haven't seen in a long time. I don't know what he's been doing, but he's making another suit of whip armor, and then he busts into the middle of this congressional hearing that Kitty's at, and decides to screw everybody up. I don't know why. There's some narration prior to that, where as he's working on his suit, he's talking about like sanctions, and that the sanctions that I guess Americans are passing on his country, which I believe is Russia, are killing his people. I don't know. I guess that's what's going on, and that's what he's mad about. And so he decides to just bust into a congressional hearing to I guess, make his case that sanctions are bad. That they're hurting his people. I don't know, man. It would be interesting to know what the hell Whiplash's problem is before busting into this meeting and tearing it up. But, that's cool. So we get a little bit more of the budding renewal of a relationship between Kitty and Colossus. I kind of wish that I knew where this was coming from. It had been interesting for a while to see Kitty kind of move on from her relationship with Colossus. That's certainly a relationship that's always meant something to me. It's always been one of the big couples in X-Men comics, but I don't entirely know where these feelings are coming from between these two, because it's got to be a little weird, especially after Colossus. I enjoyed his fling with Domino in Cable and X-Force. I thought it was an interesting side. She kind of brought out, some interesting aspects of Piotr that we haven't really ever seen before, and that relationship was actually a little more interesting to me. But I guess I'm on the boat with Kitty and Colossus. I certainly don't have any objections to it. I just don't feel like there's a whole lot there. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of chemistry there on the page. It just feels like they're being forced to come together. Or they're just having to come together because that's like what's expected. I don't know. It seems a little off to me. I do like the relationship between Kurt and Rachel, though. I like seeing them come together. So I hope we get to see a little bit more of that, because that is actually kind of fun. Anyway, the big development in this issue is that whoever these other Russians have resurrected Omega Red. That's where issue 9 ends, and then we move into issue 10, and we get to see what's going on with Omega Red. So issue 10, X-Men Gold. This is kind of interesting. I guess this is an uncle, a long lost uncle. I've never seen this dude before. I don't really remember him existing, so I believe this is a new character, but a previously unknown brother of Colossus and Illyana's father comes out of nowhere and calls them up. He's got something to do, or he knows something about the resurrected Omega Red, and so he tells them about this, and the X-Men, the Gold Crew, show up to meet him. Whereupon they're immediately attacked by a bunch of like magic wielding Russian mafia. I don't know why they're wielding magic. I know their like lead dude, I guess the guy who is responsible for resurrecting Omega Red, did it via the dark arts and imparted some of that talent to his mob crew, apparently. So they're ambushed. Big old fight ensues, as it typically does. And somehow Illyana gets captured by these dudes. I mean, it's weird. In the book, the team even makes reference to what a bunch of D-listers, a magic wielding Russian mob would be. I mean, this should be pretty easy cleanup for this team. And somehow Illyana, of all people, gets captured. I feel like maybe it's until maybe she meant to get captured so she could get close to Omega Red and take him out. But the issue ends with her captured or ensnared by those whip things, the carbonadium, I think, whips of Omega Red. So that's your cliffhanger. I'm assuming she's gonna bust out of that pretty easily and take out Omega Red. Though I hope he continues. I'd like to see a little bit more of Omega Red. I feel like he's kind of a fun. He's a ridiculous character. He's kind of fun, but there's not I don't think there's been a lot of a backstory on old Arcady. So maybe Guggenheim can take this opportunity to sort of flesh him out a little bit now, 20 years later, since I think he first came on the scene. I certainly wouldn't mind that at all. So yeah, I'm hoping this that we keep going somewhere interesting with this issue, and I kind of hope we drop the mutant deportation storyline, because again, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, that's Gold 9 and 10. So, moving on into X-Men Blue 9 and 10. So 9, we're wrapping up the story that takes place in New Shan. The young, or I guess at least half of the Blue crew has been captured by Emma Frost. And the other half is battling Havoc. Polaris just shows up and kind of rescues. I think it's Jean and Jimmy Hudson from Havoc. And I kind of like the cover. It's a clear homage to X-Men number 50, that gorgeous Steranko cover, which I'll throw up just because it's a beautiful cover. But this clearly an homage to that. But pretty straightforward as far as the story. Polaris shows up, takes on Havoc, allowing Jean and Jimmy to rescue Beast, Iceman, and Angel from prison, and then they go to try to rescue Cyclops from Emma, she's got Psych under her control. She's clearly got some weird issues with Cyclops. So all of that, of course, all of that works out. They manage to get out of there. The New Shan thing, like, it just continues to raise more questions for me, because I don't understand like why anybody is working with Emma at this point, as she is essentially gone like full supervillain. So I don't understand if like everybody's under her control, because again, she's got I guess Toad maybe makes some sense, and maybe Mondo, but Firestar really doesn't. I don't know if reading maybe the other surrounding issues of the Secret Empire event would make any more sense. But regardless, they get out of New Shan. Psyche and Jean, I guess, in her effort to free him from the White Queen, now develop their famous psychic rapport, where they're pretty much like always in each other's heads, which is something I always kind of liked, but was little explored, I feel like, during that time period, because it would be really weird to have somebody else like always all the time in your head, and to kind of know everything about you all at once. So I'm hoping that we see a little bit more of that, and as we move into Blue number 10, I think we do get to see, or Cullen Bunn kind of explores a little bit about of what that is like. So at the end of this issue, it's Emma and Havoc, and Zorn actually manages to kind of break out of Emma's spell for a minute and helps the Blue team free Cyclops, and then she's able to kind of bring him back under control. And the issue ends with the cliffhanger of Emma and Havoc meeting up with Miss Sinister and Bastion, and they're talking about bringing some program global called Mothervine. I don't know what that is. I'm sure we'll see more of that in the future, but I don't know. I'd like to understand maybe a little bit of the motivations, certainly with respect to Emma more. I know she's gone a little bit crazy, but I'd like to get some of her inner thoughts on what's actually driving her to work with Miss Sinister and Bastion, and then to maybe get a little bit more understanding of what's going on with Havoc, who I guess is still turned from that Axis event. He's still kind of like on the evil side, but I'm not really sure what's driving him either. God, I really wish that there was a series just about New Shan. I wish there was just a series devoted to kind of the development of that nation, why people came together in that nation, especially like Beast, like what drew them to start that kind of country, and to work with Emma in doing that, and how Emma kind of seized power of that state. I just think that would be really interesting and fun to explore, but I'm sure we'll never get it. On to X-Men Blue number 10, a new story arc. So this starts out with Beast at a diner or cafe in Madripoor, talking to gazing Nightshade. My God, just like the most He's just the most emo of emo names that you could ever come up with for a person. So Gazing Nightshade, and Beast is talking about like he feels kind of like a young Beast that kind of feels like a bit of a failure because like science was always his thing and he was always kind of on the cutting edge. Now that he's in the future, you know, technology has passed him by. And he's kind of now that he had always felt like special and unique, you know, not because of his powers, but really because of his grasp of science and technology, and he's kind of moved now toward magic in an effort to sort of master that and distinguish himself that way, and in so doing has struck up a relationship with the freaking Goblin Queen, which is awesome because the Goblin Queen is amazing. So it's cool to see her back. It's a little weird that the Beast is just kind of diving headlong into this. I guess like young Beast, he doesn't know who the hell the Goblin Queen is, so maybe this is just some person he you know, he just considers her like some sort of demon tutor or dark arts tutor, I guess, and doesn't kind of know what her history is. That would at least make a little bit more sense about why he's not more conflicted about pursuing her tutelage. There's a nice little scene between Polaris and Magneto. Their relationship has always been kind of weird. It's never really been explored very well because, I mean, he pretty much abandoned her, and and I mean, because of that, they've never really had much of a relationship. So it's always like a little awkward to see them interacting because, yeah, I don't know. It just, Magneto as a father figure really is also always kind of awkward as his attitude toward his children. You're never really sure kind of where he is with that. There's a nice little scene with Psyche and Jean exploring a little bit of that psychic rapport that they've developed. Again, this relationship is a little weird too, especially during like Bendis's run on All New X-Men when this team came into the present day for the first time. I mean, there was really like nothing at all going on between Psyche and Jean. She kind of had a little bit of a thing with Beast, sort of, and maybe a little bit of a thing with Angel as well for a while. So you never, like, her feelings toward Cyclops have always been kind of mysterious, and his feelings toward her have also been kind of a little mysterious, as he's been pretty straight-laced. And I don't know, it'd be cool to see kind of this relationship explored a little bit, to, I guess, maybe measure what their real attraction is to each other, and whether they've almost been kind of trying to avoid it in a way to sort of attempt to distinguish themselves from their future counterparts, or I guess their present day counterparts, if they were kind of fleeing this relationship as a means to escape, you know, so much of the bad stuff that's come down on both of them in the past, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to escape their destinies a little bit, but now that they've got this rapport, I think that's going to be almost impossible to do moving forward, which is kind of cool. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that explored a little bit more. Anyway, the issue ends with the giant explosion at the house where their base is, and Beast manages to summon a bunch of like demon counterparts on the Goblin Queen's behalf, which she hilariously titles the Hex Men. So we have like Demon Nightcrawler, Demon Colossus, and Demon Pixie. There's another entity here called Bloodstorm. That's Demon. I guess that's Demon Storm. So that's where the issue ends. They're gonna have to fight their demon selves, led now by the Goblin Queen. That should be kind of fun to watch. Okay, into Astonishing X-Men number 2. So, you know, like I've said, I was dubious about this title, being that it's from Charles Soule, who wrote what I felt was a fairly disastrous event, Inhumans versus X-Men. Issue 1, I was pretty high on. I enjoyed that pretty well all together. Issue 2 is great. I can't believe how much I liked this issue. One, the art, the interiors are just beautiful, but I love, this story was fantastic. it was just fantastic. We open with Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, giving kind of this weird like introductory speech to a play that they're about to put on, and essentially the whole issue is framed as the chained up Professor Xavier that we saw at the end of issue 1 facing off with the spider-legged Amal Farouk, the Shadow King. And essentially what's going on is they've got the X-Men who have entered the astral plane, are sitting in a theater and being forced to watch this play about their history, about kind of the history of the X-Men. And as Amal as the Shadow King is trying to draw them deeper and deeper into this, Xavier is trying to, I guess, make them realize that they're trapped in this illusion. And it's just fantastic how they end up, like how Soul kind of portrays that. They've got there's a cool scene where it's kind of it's sort of a Romeo Juliet like scene. I don't know, maybe a Roxanne type scene as well, a little bit, where you've got Kitty on a balcony, kind of fawning over Colossus, who's on the ground holding up like a bouquet of flowers to her, and trying to woo her essentially. And it's great. So Xavier, in order to kind of reinforce the fact that this is an illusion, kind of starts switching up the characters a little bit and puts Rogue on the balcony, and then gives Colossus Gambit's trench coat, or then reverses or screws it up even further, and gives Rogue kind of like I maybe like Archangel's body a little bit. It just she's got kind of a blue face, and then makes Gambit dresses Rogue up on the ground floor in Gambit's clothing. So I mean, he's messing up their genders, he's messing up like who they are in order to kind of snap them out of this illusion, which does end up working. And then as they kind of start to wake up a little bit within the astral plane, they're still trapped there, but at least kind of now aware of the illusion, though they don't understand who's necessarily pulling the strings. They do kind of work out that clearly the Shadow King is fighting somebody in here, and that they are, Phantom X actually kind of puts it together, that they are pawns in this larger psychic battle going on between the Shadow King and who knows who else. We know it's Xavier. We at least find out that the beast that showed up in X-Men Astonishing #1 is actually Mystique in disguise. And they do comment on why Logan didn't get that in the first place. I guess he was just distracted. So at least like we don't have to, try to figure out why Beast is hanging out in the Astonishing crew and somehow teamed up with Emma Frost and running a mutant nation in California. That's at least that concern is dropped. So they kind of then we move into Phantom X kind of puzzling out what's going on, and the issue ends kind of bizarrely with Farouk kind of conceding that that Xavier's won this first round, and then getting them to wake up, I guess, a little bit within the astral plane. And we kind of discover that Xavier and Shadow King have this deal with each other where if Xavier wins, he'll be allowed to kill the X-Men and put them out of their misery. Whereas if, the Shadow King wins, then he'll just keep them there forever. Kind of a bizarre deal. I'm sure we'll find out more about that, but just really an incredibly well executed issue. Just issue 2, man. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm totally on board with Astonishing. Excited to see where Charles is going to take us throughout this series. Just a fantastic first issue, and an off the charts excellent issue number 2. So I'm real excited to see where we're going from here. Fantastic art as well, if I didn't say that already. But if you're interested in any X-Men books ongoing, I would say, probably pick up Astonishing. It's really great, and it's really self-contained. So you don't really have to really concern yourself too much about what's going on outside of this particular book. It's really tightly told, and very self-contained, very well executed story. Okay. moving into the Weapons of Mutant Destruction storyline, we're going to close that story out with parts 4, 5, and 6, beginning with Totally Awesome Hulk. Let's see here. This would be issue number 21. So Bobby Andrews, the subject that has been now indoctrinated into the program, Reverend Stryker's kind of anti-mutant program. He's taken in to Serenity Hills and is injected with a bunch of crap, and he's going to be, the candidate for this new sort of Hulkverine prototype. So he is taken under Dr. Alba's wing, and she puts him. I guess she starts him, throws him in the batch, throws him in the vat. I guess he's slowly starting to realize like what the hell's going on. And then meanwhile, while this is happening, the Weapon X crew and Amadeus Cho are on their way to that facility to try to rescue him, to stop Dr. Alba, to capture Stryker, and to shut down that facility and this new program. There's kind of, I like in this issue, there's a conflict that breaks out between the Weapon X crew and primarily Sabretooth and Amadeus, in that Sabretooth's solution to this problem is to just blow the whole facility, let everybody inside die, and shut it all down. From there, Hulk is a little bit more, I'd like to try to save this kid. I'd like to try to capture Stryker, capture Dr. Alba, and then just destroy all of the robots that are inside. So they get into Sabretooth and Hulk get into a fairly violent confrontation over that. They make their way to the facility and enter as it's sort of weird, this Serenity Hills place. I guess it's like one of those corporate sort of subdivisions. Like everybody in this nice little neighborhood works for this new Weapon H program. It's a secure, so it's like a gated community, but like a super gated community. So they get into there as posing as I guess pizza delivery people, and from there we move into Weapon X number 6. So they get into the facility, and you can imagine what happens from here. They split up, and Logan and Sabretooth take one section, and they're like basically tearing the place up, and kind of getting into it with a lot of the scientists as well. So they're actually like looking to, they're pretty much like executing a lot of these scientists, and Hulk is supposed to go find Bobby and try to rescue him, but instead, because he's like all pissed off that Logan and Sabretooth are killing these scientists, or that at least that's what they're looking to do, and that they're about to execute Stryker himself, he's got to stop that. And because he did that, they complete, Dr. Alba completes the H beta process. So Bobby turns into now a full on Hulkverine, and that's where that issue ends. He's all hulked out with claws popped from each hand, and about to attack Warpath and Domino. And that leads us into Totally Awesome Hulk 22, the conclusion of this storyline, which I was not able to get a physical copy of. It had completely sold out by the time I got to my shop, and it had sold out all over town. Apparently, like, to such a degree that they've issued a second printing. And the first printing of this book, the one shop I talked to when I called around trying to find it, actually said that this issue was selling for like $90 on eBay. $90. Totally Awesome Hulk 22. I mean, man, I guess these crossovers, they do what Marvel wants them to do, which is get people to buy books they wouldn't normally buy in order to complete these storylines. So good on them for making that work. I still intend to get a physical copy, but had to obtain this copy by alternative means in order to complete this storyline. So Bobby, aka Hulk, batch beta, whatever, Hulk beta. I don't remember what they're calling this. Weapon H beta, maybe. Breaks out of his vat. He's attacking Warpath and Domino. Big old fight there. So you can imagine, what kind of moves or what kind of happens from there. We get Hulk versus Hulk fight. And there's kind of a cool, I don't know, I guess I kind of like this scene where Amadeus has kind of got to let the full Hulk, I guess when he hulks out, and he does still retain all of his speech. So maybe he's only letting like a portion of the Hulk out, but there's kind of an interesting sequence here where he's in his own head. And he's got and he's kind of imagined the full terror of the Hulk as contained within the trunk of his car. And he's got to open that in order to let the Hulk out, in order to really be able to fight Bobby and keep him fight Hulk beta. And while this is going on, Dr. Alba releases Hulk Alpha. I guess this is Alpha. I don't know. They don't really have names yet. So releases Hulk Alpha, who's like a gray Hulk with some bones sticking. It almost looks like Doomsday a little bit, like a little tiny bit of a Doomsday vibe from the Death of Superman. But he's got the claws, and he ends up just beheading Hulk Bobby. So that kid's dead, I guess, now, and no saving him. And then he kind of turns on. He fights Hulk for a little while, but then he kind of turns on the scientist. He seems to sort of recognize that who he was created by as Dr. Alba. I guess one of the reasons that they were failing so much with this Weapon H program is that she wasn't leaving enough of the minds of the candidates intact. And that's why they were kind of crapping out. So he actually just ends up escaping this new Hulk Wolverine character. Just escapes. And then Amadeus and the Weapon X guys, they get into kind of an argument. Logan's like, well, we got to go get this dude. Like, we got to go get this Hulk that just escaped, so that we can prevent the Weapon X program from recapturing him. And Amadeus is just like, you know what? F it. I guess he's just upset that like he was working with this kill crew and that he's a little more ideological than they are. So he just abandons the mission at this point. Now it's left up to Weapon X to kind of clean up after this. It's kind of a weird parting. I'm not going to miss Amadeus too much. I like him well enough as a character, but the bleeding heart, like, oh my God, we can never kill anybody ever. Oh my God. It gets a little grating after a while, where you've got Logan and the rest of the crew that are like, well, we have this issue with a freaking Hulk-sized Wolverine on the loose. We've got to do something about that, ideology aside. So I don't know. I guess if Amadeus can feel good about abandoning that mission, good for him. We are going to move into the next issue, Weapon X number 7, where we pick up on this particular story and see how they're going to go about getting this new Hulk under control and keeping him out of the hands of the Weapon X program. So the issue starts out pretty innocently, where we see this kid. I don't really know his name, but he's walking down the street, almost like closing credits of the Incredible Hulk TV show. He's walking down the highway. I mean, give him a bag and like a jacket, and I think you've pretty much got it, and play the piano. But so he gets picked up by a truck driver. They have kind of just a whatever little conversation. The truck driver, I guess he works for Weapon X, because he pulls off to like a gas station or a truck stop or whatever, and there parks next to another like big rig semi, and both semis open up, and it's just like a shit show of Weapon X robots that come out to attack this kid as they're trying to recapture him. And no doubt he kind of busts all of them up. There's a kind of a cool little exchange between Logan and the rest of the Weapon X crew, where Logan is actually like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of Amadeus. Well, he's old. I mean, maybe it's his old age, and maybe a little bit of Amadeus actually made an impression on Logan. But Lady Deathstrike just senses like Logan's trying to figure out a way to get to the Hulk, get to this new Hulk character without having to kill him, like how to bring him under control, and how to resolve this situation without actually having to murder him. And of course, everybody, Domino, Sabretooth, Warpath, Yuriko, they're like, that's ridiculous. That's bullshit. We need to just put him down. So I like Logan's line where he's like, I know that's the problem. I just want 5 minutes. Like, just give him 5 minutes to try to talk the Hulk down, and bring him in peacefully before running into just murder. And then ends up having to negotiate with Domino and Warpath down to, I think, just 1 minute. That's all they're gonna give him. I really like that scene. That was a cool little exchange between them. Anyway, they do end up finding him. It's weird. As he's escaping from Weapon X, he enters this little cabin, and seems to meet somebody named Clay, or I think that's maybe his alternate persona. Like, his name is actually Clay, and I don't know what's going on there. But it should be a little bit interesting to see kind of what his backstory is. But so they do end up finding this kid who I'm assuming his name is Clay. And I like the last scene here where Logan confronts him and just says, my friends have given me 1 minute to talk to you. What do you say? And then it looks like it's just going to turn into a fucking bloodbath right there. So really good, really solid issue. I really love Greg Pak has been doing a fantastic job on this series. I didn't expect to like this series as much as I do, but it's been absolutely excellent. I'm glad we're out of that crossover so we can go back to just buying issues of Weapon X, and not having to get Totally Awesome Hulk as well. Not that it was bad, but it's just, pocketbook. Come on, guys. So that's Weapon X. On to Iceman number 4. Guys, from what I am reading, this might be the lowest selling. I think it is actually the lowest selling title in the X-Men books, which it doesn't deserve to be. I can't stress that enough. It really is a fantastic title, despite whatever misgivings one may have about the whole Iceman is gay thing. Grace has been doing a really good job on this title. He's really making Bobby a much more interesting character than he's been in the past. So I would just continue to encourage anybody who's interested to check out this title, as it's been really good. And it's one of the things that, when we have as many X-Men centered books as we do, these are the kind of titles that to me stand out. We can afford to, because we've got the big budget, the big team books, the big budget, blockbuster X-Men titles make room for these smaller, more character focused books. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. But Iceman has been really, really good. And I hope it continues. So this issue, Bobby's coming off of he had tried to talk to his parents last issue, I guess, and tell them about the whole I'm gay thing, and it didn't work out because he got attacked by the purifiers. Fine. So now he's I guess they're trying to figure out where Zach is, that kid that they rescued, and I'm thinking that was issue 2 now. And this kid is annoying. I could see like some of the complaints I've seen a little bit about this book is sometimes the dialogue is a little bit annoying, which I agree with. It's almost a little bit too hip for itself, but that's fine. It's not bad, and I mean, there are worse. there are much worse. So anyway, some of the dialogue ticks aside, still a good issue. So they don't know where Zach is, and they figure out that he's actually at this club, where I guess it's a big party. I'm not sure if Daken is hosting it. I get that impression, but Daken's basically taken this kid Zach under his wing. And I've said on this show before, I'm not a big Daken fan. I just don't. Well, one, I thought he was dead. I don't know when he came back, but I thought he was dead, and I kind of wish that it stayed that way, but I guess he's still alive. So there's kind of a fun scene between him and Bobby where Dawkins like maybe trying to seduce him a little bit, but it's not working out. Bobby just ends up freezing all of the blood inside of him and just leaving him in the middle of this dance floor, and then goes up to Zach and tries to convince Zach that he's a stupid, obnoxious kid and should actually be at the school and not hanging out with this dude who is just an outright, like, totally selfish piece of crap villain. I do kind of like, so there are some like subtle jokes in here. Dawkins continually refers to Iceman as Snowflake throughout this series. And while they're fighting on the roof as Zach is getting away in a helicopter, Bobby impales Dawkins with a giant snowflake. I mean, it's stupid, but I kind of enjoy that. And then has it has kind of a strange, like, sort of heart to heart with Dawkins, and Dawkins basically, like, this is the kind of character stuff that I find enjoyable, where Dawkins, like, I can see, right through you, all that, like, faux confidence that you give off, all of that, jokester stuff that's masking an incredible lack of really a profound amount, I guess, of self-doubt. I kind of enjoy that. And Bobby returns to the mansion, doesn't get Zach, but his parents show up, and then he makes the confession to them, like, right away. Like, they walk into the door of the mansion, and Bobby just straight up gives them the confession. I'm gay. So, whatever. We'll see where that goes from here. But again, I mean, I really just enjoy, like, the exploration of Bobby as a character here. He's intensely sympathetic throughout these first 4 issues of Iceman. Every issue has been really great, including this one, and it's been fun to kind of take this journey with him. I don't know what to say. I mean, I just feel like if it's the gay thing that's bothering anybody, if it feels like it's a little ham-fisted, I mean, it is. Like, it is. There's no doubt about that. He's a 50-year-old character now. Like, I mean, 1963. He's as old as dirt now. And for this to all of a sudden come out of nowhere, I mean, it does. It feels ham-fisted. It feels like it's designed to generate press, and it's designed to generate sales. And I get all of that criticism, but Grace is handling it so freaking well. These first 4 issues have been so good. It's not the dominant theme of the book. This isn't like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not the gay X-Men book. This is an Iceman book. This is a book about Iceman, about Bobby Drake being Bobby Drake. And all 4 issues have been faithful to that. It's about Bobby Drake. It's not about just a gay man. It's not about just a mutant. It's not about this or that. It's about this character named Bobby Drake, and it's felt true to that this entire time. So again, I mean, I would just encourage people to pick this book up if you're an X-Men fan. You're not wasting your time reading this. It's been an absolute joy. All 4 issues. So I hope it keeps going. Okay, moving into Jean Grey, number 5 and 6. So we're still carrying on with the basic formula that this series has set up since issue 1. Jean Grey going from one person to another, learning a little bit more about her abilities in preparation to take on the oncoming Phoenix Force. And today, or this issue 5, she is hanging out with Psylocke. Really love this issue. Really love Psylocke. That's probably why. So not a whole lot is really going on here. Really, Psylocke, it's kind of interesting. Is trying to, I guess the whole issue is Psylocke essentially kind of trying to find a method of teaching Jean that will actually speak to her. And so first they try meditation, and Jean's just kind of bored by that, and then they move actually over to this nightclub. I guess it's like a metal club. I get the impression that this is a metal band that they're seeing here, and get into a little bit of an altercation there. And then Psylocke takes her to a cave I guess a cave kind of like where that movie The Descent took place, where it looks like a bunch of like bat people, a bunch of albino bat people live. Irradiated mole monsters. I don't know. I mean, they have weird ears and fangs, so I would kind of like just chalk it up to bat people, but whatever. So thrust into the middle of that cave, Jean's kind of has to kind of make do and survive that. And then they go to a building in the middle of Madripoor, where I guess the Hand is operating, and Jean is sent on a mission to infiltrate that building and stop the Hand from doing whatever Hand-like nonsense they are up to, and is forced to face off against a bunch of red ninjas, essentially, and figure out how to do that on her own. Psylocke she kind of freaks out a little bit halfway through, and Psylocke comes to kind of save her, but Jean's already managed to kind of take out the building, and then they end up blowing it from the outside. So yeah, but we're kind of just repeating the same pattern. It's okay. It's decent enough. I mean, this is 5 issues now of Jean Grey. Oh God, the Phoenix is coming. What do? I have to like just continually prepare for it. So it's been all right. It feels a little cliche because it's Jean Grey and the Phoenix. And it's Jean Grey being afraid of the Phoenix. And that's every single one of these issues. That's what's driving her in every single one of these issues. So it's felt a little tedious maybe, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's interesting enough. And I do like seeing her interact with other characters in the Marvel universe. So it is what it is. It's entertaining enough. Issue 6 is better. We actually get a little bit more development here. So now she's moved over to Doctor Strange, and I guess is like exploring a little bit of maybe the magical side of the Phoenix Force. I don't know. I actually really like the art in this issue, and I kind of like I sort of wish that Doctor Strange would always be drawn this way, as he looks basically like an insane freaking magician, and that's kind of a fun interpretation of him. So this is actually kind of fun. He takes her into magical plane, I don't know, and they actually confront like evil Phoenix Force in the middle of this, and there's sort of a weird, like, it takes her back into the past a little bit, and she's kind of forced to explore all of these different manifestations of Jean Grey, like the original, Jean Grey's past, and explore a lot of her life. I mean, you've got like 90s era Jean Grey, the costume and everything, and then the Grant Morrison era, the conflict between the sort of weird love triangle between her, Emma, and Scott during that era. And what I like about this issue is it ends with Jean having to confront the fact that the thing that she's been running away from is herself. The Jean Grey that she's been essentially attempting to escape the fate of the original Jean Grey, and in so doing has just denied that entire aspect of her personality. Has almost, I guess, been trying to assert the fact that she's a completely different person. And the Phoenix, or Magic Phoenix, whatever this is, or the ghost of Jean Grey, as it seems to be at the end of this issue, makes her basically have to accept the fact that she is Jean Grey. She may be time displaced teen Jean Grey, but she is still Jean Grey. So she's having to confront, she's having to confront and accept herself for who she is, and may end up having to accept, some of that original Jean Grey's character's fate. So, she has been running away from that basically her entire time here in the present, and to be forced to confront that at least feels like some development here. So by issue 6, I feel like we've got a little bit more weight in this series. So certainly looking more forward to subsequent issues now, as it feels like, I don't know, she's having to confront something that's a little bit more real. So hopefully we'll get out of this. I don't know what to expect from issue. I never look at the solicits. So I don't know what to expect from issue 7, but I hope that it's not Jean goes and talks to, I don't know, Quinn. She's already talked to Quinn. I don't know who else is there. She goes and talks to Amadeus. I don't know. Maybe Amadeus has got some interesting insight to impart on the freaking Phoenix Force. I don't know. So hopefully we'll move into kind of a little bit of a different track for this series. Okay, Generation X, number 5. So like I said earlier with respect to Iceman, again, the fact that we have so many X books in play is what allows titles like this, is what allows, titles like Generation X to exist, where we get a little bit more character focus. In this issue, we're laser focused on iBoy, Trevor. I think Trevor, and I actually forget his last name, but so he's training with Jubilee. I kind of like this training program. He's basically like a bunch of people on the grounds, I guess, have got like this little item that he's supposed to be tracking. And his job is essentially to watch the campus via a bunch of view screens to figure out where that item is. So it's cool to see him. It's cool to see them actually maybe trying to develop his powers a little bit. And in so doing, he ends up seeing a bunch of weird stuff. So he sees like X-ray versions of these characters. He sees them naked. He sees them through a bunch of different kind of, I guess, every different way of seeing another person. Trevor is kind of developing this a little bit, and it's out of control. It's out of his control. So he's just getting freaked out, basically. I mean, he's just being freaked out by all these different renderings of people around him, and ends up talking to Nature Girl about this. And I kind of like, so Nature Girl seems like really aloof and kind of bitchy a little bit, but I sort of like that they're kind of developing a little bit of this bond. And so he's immediately attracted to her because for whatever reason, she's the only one that still appears normal to him. Everybody else he's seeing is like a weird X-ray version of themselves. From here, the issue it kind of makes a left turn into a weird little adventure that Trevor and Nature Girl go on, where they track this raccoon that like stole somebody's wallet back to the Rat King, who lives in the sewers, who's having animals like steal a whole bunch of crap for him. It's a little ridiculous and a little off-putting. There's kind of a weird, it really starts with Trevor making this kind of absurd little Braveheart like speech, motivating both himself and Lynn and Nature Girl here to go after this Rat King character. I do kind of like this sequence, and like they've got the Rat King on his ass, and he starts trying to give his whole like speech and story about why he's having animals steal stuff from people, and Trevor just knocks him out, shuts him down, and we don't hear anything more from the Rat King, and let's hope that it stays that way, as this is maybe a little more ridiculous than even I would prefer it to be, but still like a good issue all in all. I mean, we get a little bit more development out of Trevor, who, I mean, this character was, I think the first time we saw him was back in Jason Aaron's run on Wolverine and the X-Men. I want to say it was around that time. Jason Aaron had kind of added a bunch of new characters. It was like iBoy and Shark Girl and a bunch of other mutants. So I like this stuff, and Generation X is exactly the title where these kind of things are supposed to take place, where a development of the students, that's where this book lives and breathes for me. And Christina Strain, I think, is doing such a great job with this. I want more, maybe slightly less ridiculous at times, but I want more. I really like these characters, and I think that's why like these kind of titles speak to me more than even the larger team books. Because even Generation X back in the day, when it was, Jubilee, Skin, Husk, Chamber, all of those great characters, they were their own team, and they had their own opportunities to kind of explore themselves as characters. And that's what this book is doing, and I want to see even more of it. So really just Christina Strain continues to do a great job on this. I mean, Generation X and Iceman are probably still my top two X titles, even though, I mean, Astonishing is clearly blazing a trail, just 2 issues in, but Generation X continues to be fantastic read. Okay, so Cable number 4. Still, for my money anyway, the weakest of the Resurrection titles has been this Cable book. So Cable finally confronts Conquest, this dude who has been traveling through time, trying to put together pieces of the time sword, I guess, to fulfill his name and conquer the world, or I don't know, all of time. I'm not really sure what he's like, Earth, or maybe just one nation of Earth. I don't really know. But he wants to take shit over, and he wants to do it via the time sword. And Cable wants to stop him. So Cable's pissed, because all of the stuff, it's kind of like the time travel. It's always sort of problematic. I mean, Cable's big issue is that this dude Conquest has been giving like these, like as he's traveling through time, he's giving people, stupid, weird pixel weapons, like we've been discussing. So like ancient Mayans, or in this issue, Russians under, this is what, Rasputin? Yeah. So the Russian army under Rasputin. I can't remember where else he's been, but everybody's getting pixel weapons. But like, so Cable's like, well, that's like screwing up history. I'm not sure how, as we haven't seen it reflected really anywhere. So I guess you give the ancient Mayans a bunch of pixel weapons, they still go extinct. You give Rasputin a bunch of pixel weapons, he still fails to freaking to conquer the entire world. So I'm not sure how much of a difference it's been making, as it's hard to tell. But Cable certainly feels rather passionately about people screwing with the time stream. So he gets into a big fight with Conquest, and gets into a big fight with Rasputin's soldiers on behalf of Conquest. Cable gets whatever I'm assuming it's the last piece of the time sword, as this is a pretty stereotypical story, I guess, somewhat cliched in design and execution. So he's got, I'm assuming this is the final piece of the time sword, and takes it to what appears to be the Savage Land, inviting Conquest to pursue Cable now, and probably have, hopefully, their final battle in issue 5 of this series. Storyline that we probably could have knocked out in 2 issues at the most. Kind of a filler storyline. I said before, James Robinson is a good writer. He is good. And I did like his last run on Fantastic Four. That was the last run of that title before it was canceled, and it was good. Like, it was enjoyable. This storyline, this first story arc with Cable and Conquest has been pretty weak all the way through. So I've seen some stories about future issues. We're going to see Cable in the newer mutants. I think Cable in the newer mutants. So it'll be interesting maybe to see Cable kind of leading a new mutants or a new X-Force of sorts. That'll be kind of fun to see potentially. And I think it's getting a new writer too, which is unfortunate, as I do. I mean, this as kind of quotidian, as kind of boring as this first arc has been, it hasn't shaken my faith in James Robinson at all, as a writer. But issue 5, let's get to it, I would say, so that we can get past it and get on to a more interesting and much more promising setting with Cable and apparently and hopefully these newer mutants. Okay, and Old Man Logan number 27. This is Days of Anger Part 3. So we're opening up in the Wastelands again. Old Man Logan talking to Old Man Hawkeye. And then we move from there into, so Logan has been captured by the Hulk gang. They've got him chained to this like pillar, and they're just blasting him to pieces with this Gatling gun, and I guess letting him heal and then blasting him to pieces again. So it's pretty brutal, and it's a little ridiculous. Logan unsurprisingly manages to get free from this and manages to get a hold of that Gatling gun and then just blast the Hulk crew into pieces as he is making his way to Maestro. There are like a million Hulks. So he's got, I don't know, man. I don't understand how big the Hulk gang is. I didn't know it was that huge, or like, really, one, how big is the Hulk gang in like the Wastelands, and then how many of them made it into the 616 universe after Secret Wars ended? Because he blows apart like 4 or 5 of them, I think, in this issue. But then we cut over to where Maestro is, where he's like stockpiling weapons, and I guess, I don't know, he's gonna blow shit up. I think his plan is to like just irradiate everything. I don't know, just like nuke everything, maybe, to make it safe for Hulk people to live. And like when we cut over there, there's like Maestro, and then, you know, still like 5 or 6 other Hulks. So I don't know really how many Hulks there are. It's such a ridiculous comic. So anyway, Logan gets out of being captured, and then I guess he passes out, and then he wakes up in what almost looks like a freaking dungeon itself. But then we see that the Hawkeye is bringing him coffee, and I guess Hawkeye's going to join in on this little mission that Old Man Logan is pursuing against Maestro and whatever is left of the Hulk gang. So, you know, I've said it before, I still feel the same way. Old Man Logan, the Wastelands, his relationship with old Hawkeye, the fact that his family was killed by the Hulk crew. I don't have anything invested in any of this anymore. I feel like all of that has been explored to death. And this is mining that same exact territory. And I just don't think there's anything left there that's really worth exploring anymore. So I guess I hope that, man, I really enjoyed this title under Jeff Lemire. And God, and is it Andreas Sorrentino? Like, his art was freaking amazing. And they just were hand in hand on this title. And now that it's been taken over by Bresson, maybe it's just a rough first arc, and hopefully the next one will be better. But I am really ready for Days of Anger to be over with. It's just not very interesting, and I just don't care about Old Man Logan's past in the Wastelands all that much. Anyway, I just don't think there's anything. But I've already said, I don't think there's anything really left there to explore. Is it bad? No, but it is kind of just boring. All right, into all new Wolverine number 23. We are on that. So Gabby has been taken by the Brood. Laura is not happy about that. Understandably, neither am I. So we open up with Drax trying to take Laura, trying to prevent her basically from going after, just diving head first into the Brood and trying to rescue Gabby. And he actually I guess he just throws her over the wall of that alien city where they're at, which is kind of funny. And so they end up talking to the aliens and get a little bit more information about, well, like, why they sent that first alien to Earth, who then subsequently infected that entire island that's around New York. And they meet Fang. I didn't read Wolverines, that series that was, I think, so we have Death of Wolverine, where Logan dies, and I guess he becomes like this adamantium statue. I actually didn't read any of this, and again, this was stuff that Charles Soule was writing at the time, and that's maybe a little bit of a part of why I wasn't reading it at the time. And then, of course, it was just Marvel was just milking that Death of Wolverine event for everything it was worth, which is fine, but I'm not going to spend all of that money to read everything up into Death of Wolverine and then that event itself. and then the Wolverines thing. That was like a weekly comic somehow. I don't know how they pulled that off, but it was like every week a new issue was coming out of that. And I didn't read any of that. But apparently this character Fang is in there somewhere. I do not know what his relationship is to the family of Wolverines, and I can almost guarantee you that I probably don't really want to know, because I just, the fewer Wolverines, the better. Regardless, so we cut to the Brood. The Brood Queen is like really interested in Gabby. I think it's because of the healing factor. It's almost always because of the healing factor. That's the thing that's so attractive about Wolverines in general. So Laura and the Guardians of the Galaxy managed to track them down, or track down the Brood lair and get in there. And then, I mean, my God, guys, just comic books are ridiculous. They discover that Gabby has been turned into a Brood that can extract its own bone claws. And Gabby has like the single bone claw that comes out of her wrist. And, instead of 3 like Wolverine, or 2 like Laura, she just has the one that comes out. And the Brood Gabby also has that same ability where but Brood have like a whole bunch of arms, so I guess she has like 8 claws altogether, whatever. And then she ends up, it appears anyway that she ends up killing the Brood Queen and maybe like becoming the Queen herself. And that's where the issue ends. I don't know how they're going to reverse this process, as it's fairly like pretty irreversible. Do I remember correct? Like, because I think Professor Xavier like became a Brood, but they ended up cloning him or something. And that's the Xavier that we got after the original. I think it was the original like Brood saga, because Xavier Brood was killed. I don't remember. Comics are ridiculous. And this issue is absurd. Especially, we have Wolverine, Gabby, clone of a clone of Wolverine, who is now also a Brood. That's where we're at. That's where we end All New Wolverine issue number 23. We'll see where issue number 24 goes from there. I'm hoping that we get maybe a few, like a little, we return to, like, this title was really fun, especially in the beginning, and it's still fun now. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still well entertained here, and I love Laura. I love Laura Kinney. So I'm pretty much going to follow this wherever it goes, but I am hoping that we return to like maybe some of the more grounded stories that we got in towards the beginning of this book. I was real low on the first arc of this book when it was just the clones, and that's where Gabby was introduced, and then like 3 or 4 other clones of Laura that have subsequently died. I think maybe there's one that's still around somewhere, and she was working with Kimura, I think, one of Laura's original nemesis. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping let's get out of space, and let's be done with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't need the Guardians of the Galaxy to be anywhere near Laura anymore. But I mean, it's just, I don't know what they're gonna do with Gabby Brood. I'm assuming that that's not the end of Gabby. I'm sure they'll figure out some absurd way to reverse that process and cure Gabby. But we'll see where it goes. All right, and then we have 2 issues here of the Generations one shots. So this is the Generations events where Marvel has essentially been teaming up one legacy character with like their newer counterpart. So there's like, Lady Thor, Jane Foster Thor, and I guess maybe original Thor, and then like, what's her face, Ironheart, I think, and Tony Stark, Iron Man. So I only got the X related issues of this, and so we've got Generations, Jean Grey, and Phoenix. So we've got Teen Jean meeting up with Phoenix, and there's actually, this is cool in that it starts out with Teen Jean finding herself on a beach. She doesn't really know what the hell is going on, and she finds original Jean Grey there, reading a book, which is actually an homage. I don't remember what issue of Uncanny X-Men this is pulled from, but this is right before. So she is the Phoenix. Like she rescued the team. They crash landed that space shuttle into the ocean, and Jean Grey rises up out of the water as the Phoenix, as fire and life incarnate. And this is beginning around the time when Mastermind starts screwing with her a little bit, and edging her toward that Dark Phoenix persona. So Jean meets up with Phoenix here. And it's kind of cool to see Teen Jean kind of trailing around classic Jean Grey a little bit in this issue, and just kind of being awestruck by classic Jean's mastery of her own power, that like she's such a master of telekinesis that she can manipulate things right down to the atom, where she can, she can change the fabric in her own clothing into different clothes. It's just, I kind of like that. I kind of like seeing Teen Jean being so impressed with her older self. They move quickly into the galaxy, where Phoenix ends up stopping Galactus and his herald at the time, who I guess was Terrax, who we originally saw in the beginning issues of X-Men Gold, who was just like tearing up, like he was just knocking buildings over in the middle of the. I don't know why. But I mean, what heights that dude has fallen from as a former herald of Galactus, and then just kind of random, like just what a vandal of skyscrapers, I guess, is what he ends up becoming in the beginning of issues of X-Men Gold. So they end up taking out Galactus, and there's a cool scene at the end of this issue where the Watcher shows up. And the Watcher says that claim, I'm only here to witness those events which are hugely significant and can change, the course of a universe or the course of time or whatever. And the issue that he's here to witness is whether Teen Jean is going to reveal to her older counterpart what's about to happen to her, like what's going on with her, with how Mastermind is subtly manipulating her. And pushing her over into that Dark Phoenix persona. She's got to confront the fact, Teen Jean, that she's got the opportunity to save a solar system and a planet full of people, of billions of lives, that when Jean goes Dark Phoenix, she puts out, she takes them, she executes and destroys that entire world, that entire solar system, I think it was, by making its sun go nova. So it's a cool little moment where she's got this opportunity to kind of alter and change the course of history. And she refuses to. She ends up not doing that. She ends up withholding that information from Jean, and then from there kind of disappears and supposedly returns to the present. So overall, a good issue. Definitely a good little one-shot issue. I certainly enjoyed reading it. I don't know that it added a whole lot to anybody's ongoing story. Clearly Jean, as we just discussed, has been dealing with the oncoming Phoenix Force for the fucking 6 issues of her series now. And I know we're gonna see a lot of that coming up here in the future. But based on what little I've seen of upcoming solicits, but yeah, overall a good little issue, a nice little moment between Teen Jean Grey and her older counterpart. And then we have pretty much the same thing going on with Generations, all new Wolverine and all new Wolverine. I like this issue as well. I think part of it is because it's always fun to see Wolverine and Laura fighting together. So it ends up with, and I'm not sure where exactly in Wolverine's past this took place. I was going to look that up, but I didn't. It doesn't really matter that much anyway. But they open up with Wolverine fighting a whole shitload of the Hand, and Laura shows up, assists him with the fight. They're tracking his adopted daughter Akiko, they're looking for her. The hand has gotten her, and then it actually ends up leading them to Sabretooth, who's got her on a plane. And I'm sure this is in some issue of Wolverine, probably that I don't know. But one of the things I actually really like about this issue is one, Logan kind of gets it right away that Laura is like, this is a time travel thing, and Laura has shown up and she is just somebody from the future. He doesn't know exactly what his relationship is to her, but he kind of guesses. I mean, based on how she's dressed and based on the claws and all of that kind of stuff, but just kind of takes it in stride, being an X-Man for so long and having to deal with ridiculous time travel anomalies, dumb, stupid comic book crap. It's kind of fun. That's kind of fun to see. But anyway, they end up tracking a Kiko to a plane that Sabretooth is on. And he's got this little girl Sabretooth in his claws. And Laura just kind of shows up and he's like, who the hell is this? And I mean, this is why you love Laura Kinney. Rather than attempt to really try to negotiate with Sabretooth, she just attacks, cuts off his hand, making it impossible for him to retain his grip on Akiko, and then tackles him out of the plane, which is in the air at the time, and rides him down all the way to the ground, clawing at him the entire time. I mean, this is just Laura Kinney in full-on Laura Kinney mode. She's amazing. So they get Akiko back. God, she ends up just putting Sabretooth down for the count with a foot claw through the neck. And then they have the opportunity at the end of this issue, Laura and Logan, to kind of share this moment where Logan kind of reveals or admits that he knows that without really exactly saying it, that he's a member of the family, or that she is a member of the family, and essentially his daughter. There's just kind of a nice moment there that they're able to share with each other, and I just like some of the stuff. I just like some of the stuff that he says to her. For example, hey, if you are who I think you are, dealing with grief through anger runs through the family. It's just kind of a nice little moment that they share together. So much like the Jean Grey issue, these two characters getting to kind of share a fairly intimate moment with one another. It's just kind of nice to see. It's the kind of character stuff that I always enjoy seeing in these books. So all in all, I mean, these two Generations issues, your mileage may vary. I mean, these aren't like game-changing issues. They don't add anything significant to any ongoing storylines, I would say. They're really just pretty solid character moments for the characters that are involved in each of these issues. So, if that's something that you're into, I would certainly recommend getting both these books. They're both strong, both entertaining, and well written for sure. Okay, I can't believe we did it, but that was all of the X-related books for what month? August, I think. That would be August 2017. I'd say all in all a strong month for the books. Definitely looking forward to just some closing thoughts, I guess. Looking forward to Weapon X now moving back into just a Weapon X title, not having to keep up with Totally Awesome Hulk anymore. Greg Pak's just doing a fantastic job on that title. And then I know we've got some interesting stuff coming up with the Phoenix Force, potentially a major resurrection here toward the end of the year. And then I definitely really curious to see where Cable's going to go with this newer Mutants storyline. So I'm excited to see that. I'm going to make another pitch. If you're at all remotely interested in Iceman, please pick that book up. Please keep it going, as it is a great title, really well written title. And if there's anything we should support in X-Men comics, it's well written titles for sure. But that'll do it for this episode. The Gifted premieres in like 2-3 weeks from now, I think. Really excited for that. Initial reviews of that have been very positive, glowing, I would say. It's interesting to see how many people how many reviewers have been comparing the first episode of The Gifted to the first episode of The Inhumans, which is apparently not very good. I have not seen either one of those. I almost went and saw The Inhumans at IMAX, but tickets were like $15 for a freaking hour-long TV show. That's a little ridiculous. And unfortunately, it's a little sad that, I don't know, there's a part of me as an X-Men fan that's like, yes, if the Inhumans fail, that's awesome. Good. There's a part of me that takes a kind of sick joy in that. But at the same time, it's a good concept in itself when they're not trying to be, Mutants Part 2. The Inhumans is a pretty decent concept on its own, but yeah, what are you going to do? Gifted hopefully is going to live up to the hype that it's just now beginning to generate. As always, appreciate anybody. Appreciate you guys listening to the show. Please leave any comments below. I'm happy to respond to them. I'm always curious to know how other people feel about the X-Book titles, about the state of the X-Men titles as they are today. I'm still very positive. I think Resurrection has been an overwhelmingly positive improvement on the X-line as a whole. As always, a reminder to check out the Wednesday Night Gentlemen Multimedia Empire official podcast, our bigger brother and the more coherent production. Thanks, and I will see you all next month.